So it is time to start. I welcome you all warmly on behalf, of course, the Fažana Media Fest 2022, but also on behalf of the partner of the festival and of this panel, which is the European Commission in Croatia. So thank you for having us here, and thank you for being willing to discuss this very important topic. I think all of our guests would agree that it still remains a burning topic in the media, and it's actually the position of women. So thank you to all three of the speakers today. Physically in the room in Fažana, we have Ms. Maja Sever, who is the new president of the European Federation of Journalists. So a warm welcome to Maja. We also have Marko Milosavljević, who is professor at the Department of Journalism at the University of Ljubljani. Thank you, Sasha. A round of applause for Marko as well. And last but definitely not least, we have here with us Ms. Radka Bečeva. Unfortunately, she couldn't come to Pula, but it's as good as if she were here, because we can see and I think also hear her perfectly. Ms. Bečeva is the head of relations with members of the European Broadcasting Union, specifically for Central and Eastern Europe. Thank you, Radka, for joining, and I hope you don't mind if we switch to first name basis. I think the discussion will be more at ease that way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and hello everyone from the forum.
Thank you, Radka. A round of applause for Radka, please. So I think I will start with Ms. Bečeva, and I will give her the floor first. I would like you to give a little frame to this discussion today. Namely, the European Commission has started to work on improving gender balance and diversity in the media within the Creative Europe Media Program, which is active since 2021 within the new financial framework. A lot of big words there, but we are the Commission, so we have to do that. This is being done, for example, by engaging with stakeholders and raising awareness, collecting data, establishing various networks across Europe. Radka, what could you tell us? What actions is the European Broadcasting Union undertaking in this direction? What is your overall stance on the topic, and how are you approaching it?
Thank you, Andrea. I would like first to congratulate Maja Sever, because I think that it is a fantastic news that she became the chair of the IFJ, and I think the first woman, if I'm not mistaken, since a long time. So I think that this is very, very good news, and very relevant for our discussion today. Many of you know European Broadcasting Union. We are the foremost alliance of public service media in Europe, and we have more than 115 organizations in this big family. And indeed, we pay a very big importance on diversity, equity, inclusion, and inclusion. Even our the president of the European Broadcasting Union, which is also Director General of France Television, Delphine Ernoult, pays very big importance to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have created a position of officer, DEI officer, diversity, equity, inclusion officer. We have created steering groups. We have expert group for sports, and we have numerous publications like reports, newsletters, casebook, etc. And of course, I'm coming now after this small introduction to your question. We cooperate with many partners, including EFJ, IFJ, the European Commission, Council of Europe, OSCE, since this is an area where I believe that all of us should join forces and should be working together. I would like also to mention something which we should also give example with our own organizations, and I'm proud to say that the EBU was awarded with equal salary certification in 2020 by the Equal Salary Foundation after passing a scientific salary analysis and an internal audit by PwC. So we definitely do cooperate with the European Commission and Creative Europe, which has as an aim bringing the more discussion and more awareness about gender equality. So we are encouraging our members. We encourage them to apply for Creative Europe program and to commit to gender equality in their company strategies. Later, I would mention a little bit more about strategies and about gender equality in content and also in strategies, which for us is a very important issue, since the public service media has to serve the whole society. Besides the Creative Europe Media Program, we are also taking part in a 2-year project from 22 to 24, which aims at promoting diversity in the European Union audiovisual sector through social dialogue, negotiating a framework of actions. This is a project with 9 partners. EFJ is actually one of our partners. They are the Association of Commercial TVs, the Federation of Musicians, of Actors, 9 actors, and the project would be coordinated also between the EBU and EuroMay. And the general objective is to improve the capacity of social partners in the European audiovisual sector to jointly implement diversity policies. Maybe, Andrea, I could stop here, and if there are more questions, I could elaborate further.
Yes, thank you, Radka, for this introduction, which was lengthy on purpose, because you are doing quite a lot of things, which we are happy to hear. For all of you that joined a little bit later, Ms. Bečeva is working for the European Broadcasting Union, so we're discussing how public broadcasters are to, adhere to the gender equality goal. And please, if anyone has any questions at any moment, don't stick to my structure, just raise your hand and you can have my microphone whenever you want. But for now, I will just keep it for another second. We've applauded to Maja 2 times already. Maybe the third one is a go too, because she has just become the president in June, Maja, right?
Yeah.
The first female president of the European Federation of Journalists, and really, I do think this deserves an applause, also an acclamation. No small treat after 3 decades of, men running the show. Let's put it like that. So tell us, Maja, how will you continue, or how will you start some new ways of advocating for women in the media? I'm talking from equal pay to basically representation of women. Have you already, gone this far to discuss this within the Federation? And what are your views? What will you be doing personally to advocate for this?
Well, the European Federation of Journalists works a lot on those issues. I was on few workshops and conferences about gender equality, about protecting female journalists. And I think that, and also in our work program, a very important part of our program is those issues. But the first concrete step after my election was formation of a new expert group for gender equality, because in the European Federation of Journalists, we work also in those expert groups. We have a few of them. We have, for example, I was a member of LAREC group. It's expert group for labor issues and protections of labor rights. We have a group for freelancers, for broadcast public media services. And now in our general meeting in Izmir, a few colleagues of ours demand to improve our work and concrete our work on these gender issues. And so we decided to form a new group. It's not so easy because, we all are volunteers. Members of steering committee and me also, but we have a permanent staff, but those people have really so many tasks and it's not so easy to form a new group to work on it, but we decided because of important and really a lot of our members emphasize important of working on these issues. So now we have a new expert group. Expert group works with let's say, few members from different countries. And we try to work on a strategy, policy. We also apply on some projects and we organize trainings, workshops, always open to advise colleagues and work with them. So I think it's a concrete step and further in our work in European Federation of Journalists. And I also think that this choice of a woman and head of the organization is also a good sign. Because gender inequality, pay gap, position of women in media sector, and a very important topic, attacks and hate speech against women, which is always much more than against men. It's really very important part of our work program, of our strategy, and protecting female journalists is a serious problem, and it's a priority of our work. So I think that this decision to choose me, it's also a very, very, very good sign, and I think that we will continue this common struggle for protecting female journalists and to fight against the very, very, very increasing problem. If you want, I can share some data, but maybe later.
Yes, let's keep a little for later. Okay. But if anyone else is interested, I'm sorry. What was the process of selecting the president? How does it go? You were nominated by a regional set of organizations. Yes. How does it work?
Union, yes, my union. We have this general meeting with delegates from all organizations, members, unions, and we have, and so my union delegate me, and Croatian Association of Journalists support this candidacy. But, we talked about it like few years. It wasn't like I decided 2 months before general meeting. I spoke with the colleagues in Brussels about this idea. Our ex-president, Mogens, really supported me. And we talked a lot about it, work on those EFJ issues. And so my union, sent candidacy, Croatian Association support that, and in Izmir I had one opponent from Poland, and that's it. I present my program. I had to send the program by mail and the CV, and so it's what it was like.
But it's good to hear there was continuity, that your predecessor sort of saw you being a woman from this part.
I worked a lot with during my work in this LAREC group, and I was in so many conference workshops, and yes, it's really was like I was prepared. I worked about. I was prepared for that. We talk about it. It wasn't like one morning I woke up and said, "Oh, okay, I will be the president of EFJ." No.
Okay. We applaud that it was a strategic path. No, that's how it should be. Thank you, Maja. And now really, really happy to have Marko on board. Thank you again for joining us, because from what I know, about your work and about you personally, you do care a lot about this topic. So my question will sort of go in the direction of visibility of campaigns. Let me give you an example. In 2021, the European Commission launched the Character, that's what the campaign is called. It's an awareness raising campaign on gender and diversity, and it's, among other things, focused on the news media and women in that sector. What do you think is the value of such campaigns? Do they influence the general public? This particular one, do you think it could, should, did influence the media sector itself? Does it have to come from within? That's my question. Do you think the media itself have to become aware of, the pressing issue of equal representation in substance, not just in numbers? You have to give him the microphone now, Maja. I'm sorry.
First, thank you for the invitation. About the campaign from the European Commission called Character, which CHER at the end. I must admit that I didn't find many stories that would be about the campaign itself, for example, in Slovenian media and in the region. But I'm familiar with the campaign, as I'm following this topic for quite some time. And we're also conducting a research called Media Pluralism Monitor for the European Commission, which is in a large, significant part based also on the data about the position and equality of different, let's say, parts of society, which of course include also women. And so, to return back to the Character, I think it's very important that the European Commission is starting and promoting these sort of topics and these sort of campaigns. No, I don't think that the change will only come from within. We have, let's say, waited for enough time for the change to come simply from within. And I must say, I'm also very glad that the current European Commission is doing a lot of work in the field of media, particularly Ursula von der Leyen and Vera Jourova have done in the past, let's say, 2 years, so much work on freedom of media and now Media Freedom Act, which will encompass a lot of aspects. We have just discussed this in Brussels a few months ago, and it seems like it will be a very wide-ranging act, and it seems like it will be very helpful, particularly for countries such as Slovenia and Croatia, which unfortunately still seem to need some sort of push or even kick from the outside. We do have a lot of, let's say, self-regulation. We do have a lot of discussion about ethics, including, of course, position of women in the media content, in the media production, in the media hierarchy and management. But I think that this sort of outside push is extremely important and extremely helpful. So it's good that the European Commission is actually conducting this sort of campaigns, because even though perhaps they don't produce so many stories in the mainstream media, but I think that the discussions within the journalistic associations and many others, panels like this, open the discussion. And I must say, as I've mentioned before, for example, in Slovenia, we often have panels when they invite somehow only men. And a couple of times there were like 5 of us. And I asked the host, when I was asked to participate in a discussion, I asked, why are we all male panel? And I said, what do you mean? And I said, we're all male panel. We're 5 of us only men. And please, can you at least, you can change me, but please, it's not normal in a way that we have 4 men discussing any sort of media issue. And he said that, oh, well, yes, actually, thank you. And actually, you're the first one who have warned me about this. So it seems that this sort of societies in this region, I think, still need a lot of warnings, a lot of discussions like this one, and a lot of kicks from European Union and Commission or European Federation of Journalists.
No, I just wanted to ask about, hopefully it's not interpreted as ageism, but what sort of age was this host? When he said it's the first time someone spoke to me, was he at the beginning of his career? Or?
No, he was in his 40s.
Oh, well, that's quite interesting.
But we often have this, and only in the last few years, there were a couple of actually public warnings, so to speak, also on social media, that there are simply too many guests, particularly at main media broadcasts, radio broadcasts, TV broadcasts, and so on, discussing important topics. It's different when you talk about culture and arts, and these are female topics very often. But when it comes to the political discussions, economy discussions, and so on, very often you would have an all-male discussion, as I say, also in Slovenia.
So the hard topics are for men. Maya, you wanted to intervene?
Unfortunately, we used to see also on our public service TV shows, debates about important topics, serious topics, with just men in a studio, and I always protest publicly.
Thank you for this. And what is the way to go? Yeah, sure.
But I would just like to slightly interfere, but not to have only, let's say, critical word. I brought today's print edition of daily newspaper Delo with me.
Is anyone taking photographs, please? I think now is the time.
And this is the front page of today's Delo. And it says, "You are not alone." And it's, of course, as you know, also in Croatian language, it is a female version of same, of being alone. And it is mostly about the victims of sexual crimes that have obviously taken place within, let's say, Slovenian cultural sphere in the last few months. Mm-hmm. And the victims of these crimes have spoken actually first at an anonymous Instagram profile about a month ago. So the media did not play a role in this as such, but it does have a very important role right now. And this is sort of a message from Delo, which I find very intriguing and also important. There will, of course, be many discussions whether what does it exactly in a way mean? Somebody will say it's perhaps paternalistic. Somebody would say it's this, whether it's about this or that. But I think it's also important because this has never happened in a mainstream Slovene media to have this sort of opinion headline on the front page, particularly about such topic, because front page of Delo is usually reserved for hard topics and not this sort of societal topics, let's call them like this.
Could we say it's maybe become a hard topic then? It
certainly is a hard topic, very hard topic, but let's say from mainstream media, this is very often something that is being in one way or another being either delegated to the discussions about crime and about misconduct, or of course, when it comes to the sexual allegations, it's a very delicate issue in the media sometimes. also avoid this topic, saying that everybody is innocent until it's proven guilty, and then they delegate this to somewhere, let's say, more discreet, and of course, except for the tabloids.
Thank you for this intervention. Much appreciated, Marko. I hope we still have Radka around.
Yes.
I hope you were able to follow us a bit. We know it's hard sometimes through Zoom, but hope you could follow this last streak of discussion. And I would actually like to hear your view on what we just mentioned, you know, the problem of not having enough female experts in hard topics. Have you ever, even from your professional standpoint, but maybe even personal, considered how it could be surpassed? Could we have a list of experts available for public discussion and then have an equal number of women or men? Have you considered the pragmatic aspects? And then I also wanted to ask you, you know, the true value of public broadcasters when it comes to shaping public opinion. We're now in the year 2022. How influential are they? Just your general overview of Europe in gender mainstreaming. And since you do cover Central and Eastern Europe, do you see some differences, similarities, some regression of trends? Was it different before? Was it worse? Was it better? A really long question. So we don't mind if the answer is 3 times as long.
Thank you, Andrea. Two questions indeed. I would say that public service media is special because they have a special remit to society, and the remit is to cover really the whole society, to cater for social cohesion, for understanding and tolerance. And public service media are also committed to core values, public service media core values. They were adopted in Strasbourg in 2012. And these core values are universality, diversity, independence, accountability, innovation, and excellence. So by default, we are really highly committed to diversity. And I have good news. As I mentioned in my first intervention, the European Broadcasting Union is producing a lot of reports and newsletters. I would highly recommend to everyone in the room our webpage, www.ebu.ch. We have a media intelligence service which provides very deep reports on gender equality, on diversity. So the recent MAS report on gender equality shows that PSM, public service media, play a role model in the audiovisual sector. Why? I would, if you don't mind, I would quote a few data from the report, which I think is relevant and interesting. So 63% of public service media set gender as a high priority. 67% work on gender as part of their strategies. And here I would like first to distinguish between dealing with gender equality on a corporate level, meaning management, the engagement of female staff, and then dealing with gender equality in the content. So what public service media produces and how it influences stereotypes and how it represents females. So public service media employ 114,000 women. And it seems that 45% of public service media employees are women, which is a very, very good ratio. And actually, public service media employ more women than the rest of the European audiovisual sector, with just 37.7%. And then also, public service media have a gender balance which is in line with the overall EU 27 labor market, which is 44.7%. And the good news is that we always used to say in our part of the world, in Central and Eastern Europe, yeah, we have a lot, of course, we have a lot of females, but they are not on the management position. The report shows that this now changed because in top management, PSM, public service media, are leading the way. Public service media are much more frequently run by women than the leading commercial broadcasters. So it's like 29% of public service media the CEO are females, and 26% are females in the supervisory board, compared with 8% and 10% in the commercial media. So we could, the report suggests that public service media closed the gender gap on the general management level. When it comes to content, here we still have a lot of work to do. Overall, women are underrepresented. They're between 34 and 50% on screen and on air. News remains male-dominated. 28% of women are seeing news. Here I would like to say that all actions, campaigns, many of our members have very interesting projects. BBC started in 2017 a project called 50/50, which was aiming at increasing gender equality in the news content. And when the project started, there were many members participating and joining this project. And so when it started, there were like 85 members from 24 countries, and now there are more than 100 from 26 countries. And results are vivid. I mean, one could see results. So every action is worth doing. We have also a lot of initiatives on women in music, women in sport. There are also reports provides a lot of data on like every one of four or five artists are in recent popular music is female, or like in sport now the female in sport, the attention of public service media on female in sport is increasing, and is giving a very good example on the European audiovisual scene. So I would say absolutely all initiatives are worth doing, and they are. I think now we are also suggesting to our members easy methodology to count representation of women in their content, which is I think also worth having. I would stop here, and if you or someone from the audience have more questions, I'm glad to.
Thank you, Radka. It was actually going to be my call to the audience. I have so many questions from Maja and Marko and Radka, but I really would like to hear someone else's voice resonate here nicely in Fažana. So I'm sure you have some opinions, some questions. Who wants to go first? Any comments, something personal you want to share? How do you when you see an all-male panel, what is your gut reaction to that image on your screen? No, you're going to allow me to continue with my long questions. Okay. Thank you. Now, then I will ask Maja something I want to really know more about. How will the EFJ tackle, or how is it tackle problems of feminism? We know there are some, and we know they're a bit different when we speak about the Western Balkans and we compare them to Scandinavian countries, or some other countries in Europe as well. It's a large area. It's countries. They're all volunteers. multifaceted channel, so many different things. I have to represent so those know her, she's a director, she's a really expert for media those media region, the second forms and for let's say every issue we have to solve, for example, well that processes implementation, which is recommendations very important for is around 1,000 dollars right now at this moment, and I will use this opportunity into cooperation with this supported recommendation recommendations and it's a big step in our struggle against these lawsuits. As European international journalists level against and really made very significant steps. And now our duty is to force to make some kind of pressure to force the national government once a common practice in all European countries. It seems to censor PTA, tenants, house journalists, the media by burdening them with this procedure. And that's one of our very, very important tasks. So, these issues, but I don't know if journalists give us an example. Let's say it's not a SLEP issue. Let's say we go to Western Europe, like maybe an example of a country, let's say Germany. Do you know any examples that are negative in the context of media? Or is it not? Wait. From our point of view, it's like in Denmark, when Germany is first of all, we share the same problem with attacks on journalists. And that's one of our priorities, to try to build mechanisms, build a system to protect journalists, not just against about hate speech, but for really physical attacks on journalists. And I don't know if there any country in Europe where journalists
especially during this pandemic time and the protests against the vaccine and and yes, as I said, our point of view, they don't have a problem with the workers. So, for example, in Denmark, there is, I think, more than 70 collective agreements in the fancy operation with the only two. For example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, there is no collective agreement. But I don't know, the difference is big, but we share solidarity, especially between members in our UJ, and I think that when you find out and you start to work with all those people, you find out that the problems are really severe. They don't have problem like lack of any protection of labor rights, which we have in our private in Croatia, but they also have a problem with the increasing of the protection of labor rights, even for Germany. And yes, for example, if you ask Germany, there is also a big problem with protecting the freelancers. But also on European level, we also with the European institutions work on those issues. And I don't know if you know, but a few months ago, a year ago, guidelines for freelancers on the European level was published, and it's a one step in the direction of the possibility of collective bargaining for freelancers.
So this is from your organization?
No, this guidelines is on the European level in European institutions, but we are on this document and we fight for it. And this possibility for freelancers to have possibility to collective bargaining, so to protect the workers' right by is very, very important step. Because protection of freelancers is also very, very one of our goals.
Any freelancers in the room? One, two? Okay, so Europe is working to make it feel safer, and it's not easy.
Unfortunately, in Croatia, there is no organized protection of freelancers. I think that I don't know if you know, but our media law is 20 years old, and everything has changed during these 20 years, and freelancers are not recognized in our labor and media law at all. So it's also here in Croatia, it's one of our tasks to try to organize them, to try to give them support, expert support, legal support, and to try to change something in media strategy which doesn't exist in Croatia. In new proposal of media law and regulation to try to protect and ensure some kind of protection of those people. Unfortunately, in the beginning of this pandemic, we find out how deep this problem is. Because at one moment we had like 100 people without any income, without any protection, without any rights. And I hope that our authorities also saw and recognized that that's the problem which we had to solve on some kind of institutional level.
Thank you for this. It is burning, and sometimes it needs to come bottom up. So we're looking for some organized way to this. But thank you also for mentioning to Marko before the Media Freedom Act, and you mentioned the SLAP directive initiated by the European Commission and say 2021, the public consultations.
I don't know if I said, maybe I did, but I want to say, yes, this European Freedom Media is very, very important for us. And we as an organization also support those programs of information, because as Marko said, not just in Croatia, Slovenia, but many other countries, there is a need to like strengthen this mechanism and system for support journalists, to protect journalists, and yes, as an organization, also support this this idea. And we expect that for a few days, they said in the middle of September they will publish.
Yeah, the adoption is due very soon. So next week, follow closely. It should be adopted. But thank you for mentioning it, because it's not somewhere there. It's really, and it will be ready to use. Thank you so much, Maja. We haven't forgotten about you, Radka, but I will give a chance to Marko to answer to two of my questions. And then I will have 1.5 extra more for you, and then we are done, unless someone raises their hand. So Marko, I have to ask you, we haven't delved too much into editorial. What would you say the relative absence of women in senior roles in the media does to the very editorial policy? What does it do to the way, watch news, to the way news are constructed? And maybe my second part, the second question is, the effect of media, if we even consider that they consume media nowadays, on youth. Or if you want, you can also transition to social media. But how do you think their gender stereotyping these days? So, editorial and youth, these two topics that I'd like us to discuss. Because this is the year of youth 2022, and we often forget them kind of when we talk about hard topics, but they're also here. They have their habits which reflect, the society that we live in, sometimes even better than our habits.
Yes, I don't want to paint black and white picture, because I think it's much more nuanced. I would say more like 50 shades of gray or something like that. But still, for example, when you mentioned the editorial roles, if you talk to people from Serbia, they will say that there is a female editor-in-chief of all the main Serbian, particularly tabloids and print media. She is officially not the editor-in-chief of any of those tabloids and print media, but she's a very high-ranking person from the political office. I'm not going to mention which one or which person, because I don't want to be the next case of slam. But it's a public secret in Serbia, and so I'm not saying that as soon as you would have women in these roles, everything would change. You have a new prime minister in UK today. Let's trust. Let's wait and see, and let's hope if that is going to change anything. After Boris Johnson, former journalist, was prime minister, but I'm not too particularly optimistic after watching yesterday's interview on BBC. But still, it's not a black and white picture. There are important, let's say, women in the media, even if unofficially in the region, in countries that are, let's say, not very democratic, like Serbia. Their media is not very democratic. And so women do play a very important role also in all those undemocratic positions. In some cases, the situation is actually in some of the countries perhaps even better than in some of the Western countries. Right now in Slovenia, the editor-in-chiefs of news at both public broadcaster and the main commercial TV company are women. We have women under many other important editorial roles in Slovenia, and a few years ago, all of the editors-in-chief, except I think for one media outlet in Slovenia, were women. This, of course, can also be interpreted sometimes as the, let's say, the worsening conditions in journalism and the humanization of the profession, which reflects also the enrollment of students and then later different positions in the media and in journalism. But we do have certain, let's say, good examples that even our colleagues in, let's say, United Kingdom cannot brag about. For example, I think the Financial Times got its first female editor-in-chief only last year after 150 years of its existence. The Guardian is a very similar, has a very similar situation. So we do have some strong roles for women, but where we are, where we can see the lack of real, let's say, women power or girl power, to quote Spice Girls, is the fact that there is no single media owner, female media owner in Sweden. I can remember only one owner of a local TV station, very local, also very insignificant from the national landscape, and all of the other owners are men. And so even when we will perhaps overcome the hurdles and obstacles when it comes to the role of men within the editorial, there is still a very important one, and that one is not just the glass ceiling, that one is a financial ceiling, where you simply cannot become an owner just like that. No directive from your European Commission can change that. So there is still a lot of work to be done. But as mentioned before, yes, the European Commission is here playing a significant role, and European Union, and not just for the countries like Slovenia or Croatia, the member states. I would say that the role is particularly important for countries attempting to become member states, such as Serbia or, for example, Bosnia and Herzegovina and some others. Because as you've seen, once you become a member, I think that you are relatively free to use media almost any way that you want, like right now in Hungary, to a certain extent in Poland, to a certain extent in Croatia, and also in Slovenia in the past few years. So I think that this sort of also directives, recommendations, and acts will have important role not just for Slovenia, Croatia, and other member states, but also for, as we don't talk about collective agreements in Bosnia, also forcing these countries to follow European standards, and the European Commission did not enter the media area before in the past 50 years, actually, 60, 70. And because this was the area of the Council of Europe, now it's entering, and it will mean that there will be acts and there will be directives, which is, I think, very important, as I said, also for Serbia, Bosnia, Macedonia, countries, and it's a good example.
Thanks, Marko. You didn't touch upon the youth, the youth part of the question. So their consumption of media and their view of the world, yes, in terms of gender.
Yes, I think that that part is also very relevant, but we are here sort of ignoring, so to speak, the elephant in the room, and that is actually social media. But I think that the main issue is sort of projection of women is not in the mass media anymore, but it is in the social media. Whether we call also some streaming services as, let's see, new media or social media, whatever we want to call them, but we do see that also the harassment is happening through social networks. The attacks on women is happening in terms of vulgarity, aggressiveness, sexual language, and so on is happening. Also for female journalists, female closest is happening on social media. And that is another male field in terms of Zuckerberg's, Bezos's, and many other people who would need to do much more. And I also look at the Brussels to do more also with that. But I think that we're regulating and all of these things in terms of media is of course very important. It helps journalists, but when it comes to the public, when it comes to, let's say, women in general, also the protection of women journalists or editors, you cannot protect them simply by some sort of media pact if you don't intervene also in the social media. And the pictures that you see perhaps on the Instagram or any other platforms are, in my opinion, to be more important for the image of women, particularly young girls, than almost any sort of news content that you can do.
Thanks for this, Marko. Provide something to.
Yes, I really just want to say a few words about positions and women in the media. You know, I think that as soon as more women are employed in some sector, it starts to show that it's a sign of decreasing salaries, and the profession becomes less attractive to the men. And I think that that's what's going on with journalism. And very important thing is that instead of that, still we have very, very significant pay gap. And for example, it's not new data, but I think that it's similarly even this year that men are 1,300 kunas more than women, or I can see those numbers. So, okay. I want to say that this pay gap is so big in Croatia. There is a pay gap in all Europe, but in Croatia it's really, really big. And in Croatia we have numbers that women represent 39% of the workforce, but only 27 are in management position. It's like 2 years old data, but I think that's nothing's changed. So we have a problem, and we have serious problem with pay gap and so position of women.
We count on you, not stopping. I mean, continuing the fight. The problem exists. The numbers are clear. Thank you so much, and I think this is the very last round of questions from me. You still can change your minds and intervene. Radka, thank you for being so patient. We know it's not easy acoustically to follow from afar. We wish, we could just be handing you the microphone, but at least we get a bit of you and a bit of your important content. So two questions. Marko sort of touched upon one of them, and it's actually the public service media in the EU accession countries. And maybe if you could comment from the, sorry? There's a question, yes. Great, yeah, I think you need the microphone because we want you on the live. I'm sorry, there's a question.
You spoke about Bosnia and Herzegovina, so I am from Herzegovina. From Sarajevo, I'm working as a journalist for National Broadcasting Radio Station. So you're constantly talking about 50-50 positions, but forgetting one big thing that when a female comes to the position of power, she's coming on a male structure, and she very soon start behaving like it's not the problem just the gender, it is the subculture deep-rooted inside. So very soon female becomes like behaving like a male. So I don't know, a lot of times we speak about media, politics, we don't have actually enough number of women in politics. But when they come to the main positions, they are behaving like men. So
maybe we could speak about business as well in a similar way.
Yeah. So we have this core, but forgetting about the essence, deep-rooted inside the system. So I think this is the problem because, but just one perspective, the main stakeholders of matters are mothers because they are raising our children.
Thank you. It's more of a comment. Radka, would you care to comment?
I think that maybe, sorry.
You want me to take all the questions?
I think that maybe Lamia wants to.
Yeah, no, I was going to give her the second, but maybe Radka, would you have, rather than me asking, did you manage to hear this question? Or comment? We can't hear you. Sorry, the sound. Need to turn on your microphone.
Yeah, the question was that females could, when they come to managerial positions, they start behaving like men. Well, I think that this is rather cultural question, and there are different cultures in management. You have silent managers, you have shouting managers, you have different managers and styles. So I still believe that we should continue this positive trend. At least in the public service media, there is a positive trend of engaging females on leadership positions. From Central and Eastern Europe, the best examples are the Baltics. Out of 4 members which we have there, 2 are female general directors. Then in the concessions are more or less all the rest of our East European countries are over 40% of female managers in the most public service media. The worst situation is in Hungary, where the female managers are below 30%. So I believe that, we should distinguish between style management and between really female leadership, so to say, and we should do our best to encourage female leadership. We have just concluded now a project with the European Commission for support of public service media in the Western Balkans. Bosnia and Herzegovina was part of this project. And I'm glad to say that we have changed, we have worked on strategies, and then when we work on strategies, the gender equality question is very pertinent and very important. There were also updates of ethical codes, and gender sensitive language was also looked at. There were also, I think that the European Commission could be praised for these perseverant efforts. When you report on events, they're really persistent on requiring that you count how many female participants took part in the training or capacity development or different activities, and how many male candidates participated. So I think that we should continue these efforts, because it is an aim on. Diversity is an EU value, and I think that we all are committed to this value.
Thank you, Radka. Maybe it's about mutuality. Maybe it's as much as about women learning from the male style, and perhaps men learning from the female style. We could even divide them. Yes, but it's a process, I think we can say. There was one more question from the audience. Let me look at the microphone now.
Actually, it was not a good question. I was a bit surprised with this question from the colleague from Bosnia and Herzegovina. First of all, because I do find it maybe being true, but maybe all of the issues, and we can talk about numbers and everything, starts from all of us women, asking such questions and expecting women and men to behave differently, maybe. So, I don't know, I found it a bit strange. What should a woman manager be like? Yeah, we can, because maybe that's the thing. Our but still we are defining it.
The microphone, or else we only hear you.
We can have a coffee.
Okay, I think this is a bonding moment. Yes.
I think that the main problems in media. Maybe I can speak about my context and my radio station. I'm working at radio station, and we have all female actors, but we have the same problems. Journalists are not paid enough. Maybe they need to fight for the journals' rights, for salaries, for the things that I can speak freely during the elections about this. This is actually the main conclusion is that
the main problems has no gender, actually. It's, yeah, it's general. Women are expected to get something.
Yes, but
yes,
we expect. I have to say that, for example, I expect some improvement of our work, for example, in our program, you know it. It's not so hard to try to change some perspective. It's not so hard to think about those guests, those TV shows, and say, okay, let's invite 2 women experts, female experts, and you know, to show sign. Then you, from a woman perspective, you probably can understand some issues sometimes better, sometimes put some on a title or on the first for the first opening information, something like this title. And yes, I think that female manager really can give some changes in a news program, in some your media, or in our program. Unfortunately, in our program, those situation with so many times with all months in our main TV show, Otvoreno, it's okay, was when a woman was chief of our program, not you, Lamia. But I want to say that really, I think that female, sorry, oh, okay. So you understand me what I want to say. I think that yes, manager is manager, but I believe and I expect that women on the position of manager really can start with the small steps, but really can show in daily work some changes from this our perspective to improve situation, which is really, really bad. Sorry, Radka.
So I would say, can you hear me? Three perspectives here. So one, I think just managerial above and beyond gender. Yeah. Right, so for you, it's beyond the gender. And for you, somehow, you thought female
for me, the problem that we have
roles.
The same form. Okay, yeah. We have the same numbers of women and men in politics. Is that garant for making things better?
And Maya said she would think it would be, and that it should be. Yeah. Yes. The expectations are present, but I think Radka also wanted to add to the discussion, right?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. I think that the question is very interesting because our distinguished colleague took it from the point of female taking some patterns from male leadership. But the opposite is very, very, very present and very often happening, that females are bringing very soft skills and they're very capable leaders, and actually male leaders are also learning from female leadership, if I could. I mean, it's a very big generalization, but I think that definitely there is an exchange going on, and we could learn from each other's styles and cultures and perceptions.
Thanks, Radka. Could I have one more question, or does the audience want to say something else? I can't omit this topic, and the question is for Radka. We've excluded you a bit now, Marko, but yeah, I think you should speak, huh? Yeah, I think you should.
Just a sentence, because I didn't explicitly discuss the issue of public service broadcasting, but as I was mentioning, the positions of editors-in-chief, but also sometimes managers. But I must say that unfortunately, one of the few media outlets in Slovenia that did not have a CEO was a woman is actually a public service broadcaster. We've never had a female CEO of Radio Television Slovenia, which is quite surprising actually. And at the same time, a few years ago, when there was a candidate, a female candidate for this position, a newspaper headline was that there are three candidates and one woman. So I think that that also shows the sort of subconscious attitude also, I must say, in the member states of European Union. And that's why we need, I think, still kicks from Brussels. Thank you.
We also never had a general manager. Yeah.
So kicks from Brussels needed. Would that be the conclusion of our panel today? I would say so. But before we conclude, just one more thing. So I want to hear about the effects of the war in Ukraine on public service media. Radka, maybe from you as the first obvious choice, but then my two other guests can comment. And if you want, you can touch upon the role of, or the influence of women as war journalists. Is this war different than the other wars? Unfortunately, there is a war we wish there weren't, but is it, how has it changed the media landscape when we speak about public broadcasting?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. It's indeed a very important topic, and I think that jumping from one crisis to another in Europe, public service media have shown really its indispensable role, because people in crisis are looking for trusted and credible information, and public service media was definitely able to provide this information during the humanitarian crisis with the COVID, and then with the war in Ukraine. So I think that here, actually during crisis, we see that society needs this concept, and we should really work on improving it and making it work even better, and making it work independent from politics, especially in our part of the world. On war reporting, I have to say that Ukraine, at first place, Ukraine is the one on the top of like female employment. They're really like above 50% of, they have about 50% of females employed in public service media. And I think that they are an excellent example of courageous and capable women. When the war broke out, Angelina Karyakina is the head of news. You should have seen her, I mean, maybe some of you have actually seen her statements and her work. She's excellent. And I think that here we should really praise the courage and professionalism of all journalists. I'm only concerned, and I think that it is beyond the gender here, about the security of the war journalists in the former socialist countries. Not all of them are equipped with the necessary tools and knowledge to send their journalists with the proper risk assessment, with the proper equipment, with all necessary tools and gadgets to protect them. Otherwise, I would really say that in the long run, this crisis have shown that society and Europe absolutely definitely needs public service media.
Thanks, Radka. Would you have any other closing words for this panel? Do you think you've said what you wanted to say, or one more sentence as your final message?
I think that we should continue to work on gender equality, and we should engage. Also, I'm glad that we have a male in our panel, because it is a common effort. We should not just close ourselves and talk only between us. We should open and use all possible tools and all ways to advocate and make our society fairer and better.
Thank you. Closing words, Maja, and then Marko.
On your last questions. Okay, I think there is no differences between what journalist, female or male. Unfortunately, it's the worst part of our job. About impact of war in Ukraine, and as EFJ, you know that 37 journalists died during this war in Ukraine. As EFJ, we work a lot with the unions, our members. We try to help. We open 4 Solidarity Center. We have a Solidarity Fund. I can invite you to join in and help us. We try to ensure vest proofs, helmets, and all those security and protection equipment. And in this Solidarity Center, it's a center for all journalists, not just Ukrainian journalists, but all reporters who work in Ukraine. It's a place, safety place in 4 towns in Ukraine where they can find some help and support. And I don't know, I hate war, and I hope, you know that I was war reporter, and I really think that it's a worst part and the worst possibility of every journalist ever. So hope that it will end soon. So.
Thank you. Just regarding the female journalists working as a war correspondent, I see absolutely no limits, so to speak, and also no issues with that sort of capability of women in that regard. Of course, it can be more dangerous for women during such upheavals, wars, demonstrations, and so on. We all know at the demonstrations in Egypt, in Cairo a few years ago, there was a sexual attack on a female journalist and so on. But otherwise, I see no obstacle to that in the sense of capability. And one of my favorite, so to speak, couples from journalism and arts is Ernest Hemingway and Martha Gellhorn. She was his wife for some time, and they both reported from Spanish Civil War, but they all said that Ernest Hemingway was a better fiction writer, but she was a better journalist.
Thank you both, and thank you, Radka. I've said thank you so many times today, but it's just, you've been so insightful. I'm really honored to have spoken to such great guests. We could continue this, but then we won't. Others need to speak too. The formal opening is happening in some 10 minutes, so 15, half an hour. So thank you once again. A big round of applause for Radka joining us online, for Maya and for Marko. I think we've opened a lot of new topics here. Maybe, maybe next year Fažana can have the title Social Media Eats Media or something, some other elephants in the room maybe. But thank you on behalf of Fažana Media Fest 2022 and on behalf of the European Commission for this great conversation, which you can see even later if you want to rewind some parts on the YouTube channel of the European Commission in Croatia. Thank you to all of you in the audience, and thank you to our head of representation, Mr. Ognjan Zlata, who has facilitated this partnership for a few years now. And then he will speak to you a bit later in the formal part of the opening. That's it from us. Follow us on YouTube and watch us on YouTube, the European Commission. And as Marko said, what is it? What was it? Kicks from Brussels needed, right? Thank you.
Thanks.